Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are previewing the main card of UFC 186 right now, possibly the greatest UFC card ever in the history of UFC, and we're going to preview it with Nick Kalikas, returning guest from MMAOddsBreaker.com, professional MMA odds maker, and also joining us over the phone, MMA analyst, also with MMAOddsBreaker.com, is Brad Tazchuk. All right, guys, ready for UFC 186? Nick Kalikas, what's your take on this card?
Really, it is a shame with all the changes and everything that's gone on for the Canadian fans. So I understand all the scrutiny and everything, everybody complaining about this fight card, because honestly, if you look back just a week ago, that card was a little bit deeper and it was free on Fox. So I do understand it. It's kind of hard to shell out the money for this pay-per-view for most people. I mean, obviously, all of us, we're still going to do it because this is part of it all, and I still respect a good fight card. And most of the times when we think a dull card's going to happen, it ends up being a lot more exciting. So I think that's probably going to be the case here. I hope, at least.
Okay, but it'll impact betting volume, though, won't it? I'm assuming that the betting volume for this card will be lower than normal.
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, with not a lot of star power on here, with everybody kind of just, you know, playing it off like not really thrilled about the card, it should definitely affect the overall betting action, no doubt about it.
All right, well, let's start with Demetrious Johnson and Horiguchi. This looks unbettable to me as well. Might be interesting to see DJ do his thing, but right now, minus 1,000 for Demetrious Johnson. Horiguchi plus 650 on the other side. Obviously, Demetrious Johnson, you know, one of the absolute elite pound-for-pound fighters in the world right now. They're having trouble getting guys to throw up against him. Horiguchi, big prospect. Is he ready to seriously challenge Demetrious Johnson right now? I don't know. At minus 1,000 with plus 650 on the other side, the no-vig odds for that are 87.2%. Those are the chances the market is giving, or 5 dimes is giving Demetrious Johnson to win this fight. Brad Tazchuk, 87.2% chance of DJ winning. What's your take on that percentage?
I think that might be a little bit low, actually.
Wow, okay.
I really like Horiguchi. I've been really high on him since he came into the UFC. But I think this is a terrible matchup for him, and I think it's a little bit too soon for him. The karate style that he brings, you know, he can get in and out really quick. He's got a lot of speed. He's got a lot of power. So, yeah, there's that potential of him being able to catch Demetrious Johnson. But we already saw a guy who I think has just as much speed and just as much power catch Demetrious Johnson a couple times, and that was John Dodson, and he couldn't put him away. Right. And Mighty Mouse has significantly improved since then. So as much as I like Horiguchi, as much as I would love to say he has a shot here, I just don't think he's going to do very well in this fight.
Well, assuming that we think that a minus 1,000 line is unbettable, is there any other way that you would you choose to bet this fight if you had to? You could take the total over 4.5 at minus 120, the under 4.5 plus 100 at 5 dimes right now, or some kind of prop, or do you actually think that just DJ at minus 1,000 is the only way to go?
I definitely wouldn't lay the minus 1,000. That's a little crazy to me. You know, even if you're throwing it in parlays, you're not getting much extra value there. So I would look at some of the props on this one. And I think if you're looking at the total, maybe the under 4.5 has some value. We've seen that his finishing skills are much improved of late. So maybe he takes Horiguchi down, can keep him down, can find his way to a submission. And that's actually a little bit what I lean towards in this fight. So I know that the Demetrious submission prop opened up around 320. I think it's sitting around plus 250 right now. So if I was going to take a shot on this fight, you know, gun to my head, that's what I'd probably go with.
That sounds good to me. Nick Kalikas, you know, considering, you know, how dominant Demetrious Johnson is there anyone who's betting this fight who is actually taking Horiguchi, either in a straight or a parlay or anything? Are people touching Horiguchi at all?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you're going to have trickles at a big underdog like that. Doesn't matter who it is. I mean, people are going to go out there and you know, take their stabs, of course. So all the sportsbooks are going to get some action. I mean, it's going to be minimal though. It's just going to be those guys taking shots for sure. And then a lot of people they did come in early on at the straight line. I opened at minus 505. So there has been some significant movement, on this fight. And of course, everybody put him in parlays. Everybody thinks it's an automatic lock for DJ. You know what? I'm kind of torn on this fight a little bit because for me, in my opinion, Demetrious Johnson is pound for pound arguably the best fighter in the UFC, the best MMA fighter on the planet. I mean, the guy's so well-rounded. He's so good in every aspect: toughness, wrestling, striking, submission skills. I mean, the guy doesn't really have a weakness. His chin is solid. Everything that Brad said is very true. But the hard part about this is Horiguchi does present some problems for a lot of fighters. I mean, he might be a little bit getting this fight a little bit too soon. A lot of people are saying that. And I think it's true. Maybe a fight or two away, or even maybe a little bit more time to mature and get a little bit better and round off his skill set. But he is a threat on the feet. I know a lot of people could compare Joseph Benavidez as far as power, and DJ was able to survive that, and also again against Dodson. Another explosive athlete that's super fast, super powerful on the feet, and he was able to survive that as well. So I agree with that. But Horiguchi is still different. He's a unique striker for 125. I mean, he poses a lot of problems for people because of the way he fights. He's a karate stylist. He uses those angles really well. He explodes in, and when he hits very hard as well. So he's got speed. He's got power. I think he's got a lot of things going for him that might cause a little bit of problems on the feet, at least for Demetrious Johnson. Now, Mighty Mouse always adapts. He's a very skilled fighter, and he always even outstrikes people, it seems, on the feet. So I don't think that he's going to have a lot of problems, but it is going to be a little bit dangerous. And I think the line's out of whack, to be honest with you here, as far as, competition level. They're just kind of writing this guy off. It reminds me of Barao and Dillashaw, the first fight. I opened Barao around 4-1, 425 or so, and they bet it up to 1,000. This is freaky, in my opinion. It's kind of almost a similar type of fight. A little bit different, of course, because Dillashaw, I think, had a more well-rounded skill set than Horiguchi. Horiguchi's mainly a striker, but still, I think the movement's a little bit the same. Nobody really gave Dillashaw in the first fight much of a chance either, and I think we're seeing a lot of the same things here.
So then, when you opened it at 505, would you consider that now to be a miscalculation, or are you just happy to have the action now in the position that the books are going to have right now? I mean, if you knew that the action was going to come in the way it did, would you have opened it at minus 800 or even at 1,000, or are you happy to have all this Johnson action at such huge odds?
Well, you know what? Honestly, it's not surprising that they came in that way, but I would have probably raised it a few 100 cents higher if I would have known it settled around 1,000 for sure. So I did lowball a little bit, and I wish it would open it a little bit higher. But make no mistake, I mean, we're going to need the underdog to come through, and we would have probably anyway. And it's not going to be huge because a lot of people, after it gets to a certain point, I mean, they're not really going to be laying a lot of straight action on that line, right? So it's going to be more parlay action. Everybody's going to parlay with different sports. So the sports books are probably in a spot where if DJ comes through, obviously they're going to lose a little bit on this fight, but it's all right because parlays have been busted recently quite a bit, especially this year thus far. So they're in a good spot regardless.
Brad Tazchuk, from a handicapping and odds perspective, does this fight remind you of Dillashaw and Barao, or do you think it's their fundamental differences?
In terms of the odds, it definitely reminds me of that fight because, Nick was mentioning that nobody gave Dillashaw much of a shot. I actually ended up betting Dillashaw inside the distance at plus 1130 in that fight. Wow. And I'm looking at the Horiguchi inside the distance line, and that's sitting at plus 1100 right now. So the odds definitely have some eerie similarities. But if you look at that style matchup, Dillashaw was the better wrestler in that fight. You had seen that he had a lot of room for improvement, especially in the area where he could take advantage of Barao in the striking. Mighty Mouse doesn't have the same defensive deficiencies that Barao had, and he's the better wrestler in this fight. So I think there's some key differences in terms of how the styles match up, that even though Horiguchi probably has a better shot than the line indicates, although I don't really believe that. I think you have to stay away from that. All
right, yeah, I'm thinking Johnson by sub might actually have a decent amount of value. Is that the way you bet this fight if you had to, Brad?
Yeah, I'm probably going to throw maybe a half a unit or a unit on Johnson by sub because that's really the only place I see much value in this fight.
All right, thanks for your thoughts, guys.